Great. Good morning and welcome, everybody. My name is Kristen Biermeyer. I'm the marketing manager at Wagner CPAs, and I'm so happy to have you all here today for this webinar on evaluating your tech stack. The webinar will be recorded and will be emailed to you after today's event, along with the slide deck. If you have any technical issues during the webinar today, I will put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out at any time, and I will see if I can help you. If you have any questions during the webinar today, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Bryce will be leaving some time at the end of the presentation to address any questions that come in throughout the webinar. Our presenter today is Bryce Smit. He is a supervisor in our accounting solutions group and an implementation specialist at Wagner CPAs. And with that, I will turn things over to you, Bryce.
Thank you, Christian. I appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Bryce Smit. I'm in our accounting solutions group, and we are a CAS practice that works with for-profit and nonprofit organizations, providing full outsourced services from AP processing to CFO services and consulting. I've been with the team from the start of my career, and I focus primarily on our client implementations and our controller services. Looking at what we will be going over today, I'll cover the following topic areas from a high level. Starting out with the importance of an accounting technology stack, identification of pain points and challenges, the evaluation process for new systems, and finally an overview of our preferred systems that we use here at Wagner. If you have any questions, please go ahead and send them in, and Chrissy can jump in. Otherwise, like she mentioned, we'll address those at the end. All right, we will kick off today's discussion with the importance of an accounting technology stack. So basically, an accounting technology stack is the collection of all your applications or software that you use that provides solutions for specific accounting and financial functions. In today's accounting world, it's important to have seamless integration amongst your technology to make your system more efficient, effective, and user-friendly. The most common components include the accounting software, which is essentially the system that everything else should be built around and integrate with, followed up by an accounts payable system, accounts receivable system, payroll, expense management, and CRM system. There are accounting systems out there that may have all these components live directly in it, but it's becoming more common for systems to integrate together with third-party components and perform all these functions separately. All right, the following situations are common triggers for organizations to begin assessing their processes and systems and identifying pain points and challenges. The first one is that they're experiencing growth. You've seen increased revenue, transactions, and increase in the number of employees or locations and activity that you work in. And your current system capabilities are just at capacity and it's becoming a pain point. Another is manual inefficient processes, kind of related to number one. You've outgrown your system, so a lot of things are being done manually. So manual data entry is time consuming and it increases the chance for errors. As we've all seen, there's a larger chance you're working in a remote and hybrid workforce these days. Many businesses have multiple locations which require a cloud-based platform to enable real-time collaboration between offices or remote team members. Systems that are not based in the cloud require remote desktops to allow collaboration. This can be inefficient and costly. Along with that, you could have lack of integration. This greatly affects efficiency and productivity. It creates increased complexity and manual workarounds to just get the systems to work together. And finally, you cannot access that data in real time. You kind of need to wait for everything to be done, and you can't just go in and get the information you're looking for. If you're working through any of these situations, it may be time to review those systems and evaluate potential changes that could be helpful. To review your existing system, it's best to collaborate with team members and discuss the following areas. Starting out with functionality, ask yourself, does it cover all your necessary accounting tasks? Does it have necessary reporting capabilities? And can it integrate with third-party tools that you are using or would like to use? Ask for feedback on the user experience. Is it intuitive and easy to use for your users? Are there training and support available, or do you just need to help each other? Does it have the necessary integration capabilities? Ask yourself, can it seamlessly integrate with your existing systems? Is there an API available for custom integrations if there's a new system you want to roll out? Does it have scalability? Can it accommodate your growth and increase transaction volume if that happens? Or maybe it is happening. Is there flexibility to add or remove features and modules? Looking at security, which is very important in the accounting and finance world, what measures are in place to ensure your data is secure? Do you have systems that allow you to implement necessary internal controls? And they also track an audit trail of what changes were made. And finally, cost. The most common thing probably focused on, what is the total cost of ownership or subscription of your current system? Are there hidden fees or additional costs for support and updates? What is the cost of your time due to inefficiencies in that system? These are the areas to review and ask yourself and your team in deciding, is it time to look for something else? If you decide that it is, we'll shift into the evaluation process. When you're evaluating a new system, you want to start off by identifying the necessary system requirements. So kind of related to all the questions that you just asked yourself, any notes that you took about current issues that your system cannot do and what you wish it could. Take that list of essential features, functionalities, and integrations that you would like it to have and write that out. Once you have that list of all the necessary features, begin researching other systems and shortlisting. There's a lot of systems out there today. So, it's important to vet them and start narrowing down the systems that you think will meet your needs and can do what you want it to do. Explore those different accounting software options and narrow down that list based on the criteria you define. Once you have that list, it's time to demo and try systems out. That's the most important part as you're vetting your systems. You want to try to see it in real time, use it if possible, and just make sure that it truly can do all the things that you talk about. Sometimes they may say it can, but it can do it in a limited capacity. So you really want to vet them and use them and make sure it would be a good system for you. Take advantage of those trial periods to do so. During this time, you'll also want to gather feedback from all the users, the stakeholders, anyone kind of impacted by the systems. Compare all of the features, usability, and costs, and ask the software provider if there's any user references that you can connect with, just to get their firsthand experience with it, what their thoughts are, what their biggest selling points are. And then finally, once you've had all this information, you've done all the hard work, it is time to decide which system would be a best fit for you. Evaluate those pros and cons of each option and select the best fit. The cost, features, user experience, time saved. It's important to weigh all of that. Once you've made the decision, the change is not going to happen overnight. I think it's best to just understand that on the front end. It is a big change, and it's important to understand that the transition and migration will take time, and it is important not to rush this process, or you may end up in a similar situation. You may not be using the system to its full capabilities, and it may not have been built for the best use case for you. Now that we've gone through the process, I'm going to shift gears and walk through the ones that our accounting solutions group prefer to use in our team. Starting out with the accounting systems, I'll talk through our two preferred systems, QuickBooks Online and Sage Intaact, followed by a preferred accounts payable system, Bill.com, and lastly, our expense management systems, Expensify, Nexonia, and Ramp. Kicking things off with QuickBooks Online, the most common systems that many of you may have already known or use or currently use. I'll start out with their key features. It is a great entry-level system. It comes out of the box. It has reports that come out of the box. Oh, I skipped ahead. The dimensions available to track data include chart of accounts, classes, locations, projects, and tags. QuickBooks does come with many built-in features and modules for sales invoices. You can send those invoices out and receive payments electronically, bill payments, payroll, time tracking, budgeting, and taxes. These do come, they're not turned on by default, but you can definitely add those in. It also has electronic bank feeds to assist with automating bank transaction entries, and it is very user-friendly. A large amount of third-party systems that we work with for AP, AR, credit cards, payroll, they also connect with QuickBooks Online, which is a huge plus in making your systems integrate together. Some potential drawbacks that I wanted to make sure to touch on. It is a great system. It's very user-friendly. It's great out of the box. But with that out of the box, those reports are somewhat limited. So if you have advanced reporting needs, QuickBooks Online most likely will not be able to provide that data to you. It also has limited dimension capabilities, which hinders its reporting capabilities again, and how much detail you want to track for your data. It's a great out-of-the-box system, but those are things to consider. Anything you want to be able to report on, factor that in before you choose your system. The limitations of the dimensions can result in complicated parent and child classes, and also parent-child chart of accounts to decipher to obtain those necessary reports that you're looking for. As a result, it does require manual financial statement preparation to be GAAP compliant for our clients when we're going through an audit, and we need them to be GAAP compliant. We export them out of QuickBooks Online and prepare them in another system. There is limited controls of user permissions, which can sometimes lead to issues as there are not limitations as to who can do or see what within your system. That's very important, especially as you grow and you'll have multiple people working in the accounting system. One thing to note, it does not work as well with nonprofit organizations. They have made great improvements, but due to all the reporting requirements and things that nonprofits need to track, we do typically migrate our nonprofit clients into Sage Intaact from QuickBooks Online. And I'll go over why that is here in the next couple slides. And then finally, it does not work well with companies that have multiple entities, as it cannot track inter-entity transactions, and you would need to have more than one QuickBooks Online account. I'm sure many of you have seen the system and use it, but I wanted to give a little visual of it. And here's a screenshot of a demo QuickBooks Online company showing an example dashboard, the overall system design, and the sidebar modules. You can see it looks nice. It's easy to click around in. It's very easy to use. And sometimes that becomes a double-edged sword, as you can do things that maybe you shouldn't be doing in the system. But it's user-friendly. They do have these nice default dashboards set up to provide metrics and easy to work around in. Here we have an example of a balance sheet out of QuickBooks Online. It just shows that it is still a very nice report, but there's limited capabilities when you want to format them. You can change what data is in there and things like that, but there is limited customization. So it's great to get a quick report out, but if you need it to be formatted in any specific manner, it's not going to be your best fit. You're going to have to do that manually. All right, now I'm going to shift over to Sage Intaact, which is our most popular and preferred accounting system. It's much more powerful and allows growth and scaling. I personally love working with Sage Intaact, and I could talk about it all day. But here are the most important aspects that stand out to me. It is an accounting system that is built custom to your needs and reporting requirements. This requires more work on the front end when comparing to QuickBooks Online, but it does result in a much more powerful and tailored system to support your company needs. You can see that Intaact comes with many more dimensions than QuickBooks Online that are very versatile. For for-profit companies, you can really kind of use them in many ways as needed. For our nonprofit organizations that we work with, we typically use their class dimension to track their net asset restriction areas, departments to track their program, administrative, and fundraising areas for the statement of functional expenses. And then we use projects for grants, program fee-for-service agreements, events, or any other specific area of reporting needed. Project is very versatile, and it's probably my favorite part of the system. The last dimension noted is allocation, and they have something called transaction allocations, which allows you to pretty much have the system automatically allocate your expenses and revenue to different dimensions for you. You simply code that transaction with one line to the allocation and let Sage Intaact do the rest in the background. This is a huge asset for nonprofit organizations that makes data entry much more efficient and accurate. There's also something that can be added on that even builds off this more called dynamic allocations. And that can be purchased if you require more advanced allocations that are constantly updating as data is entered into the system. Moving on, Sage Intaact supports multiple entity operations, reporting, and inter-entity transactions. Even if you only have one entity, these days you will be set up in a multi-entity instance. And this just simply allows you to grow, and there's no complications in the future. You can add that entity in the future and allow the entities to be accounted for in the same system. The reporting capabilities are Sage Intaact's biggest asset that differentiates from other systems. You can create endless reports to visualize any data that you would like. You can also create financial graphs, charts, custom reports, KPI metrics, and dashboards. Sage Intaact can track statistical data to complement your financial data. So even if it's nothing financial related, you can create statistical accounts and enter those statistical metrics into the system to track it and present on it all in one place. You can completely customize user role permissions to maintain security, privacy, and internal control. So that's a huge plus. It allows us to control what our team's doing internally and what client users have. It's really easy to set that up. So overall, it's a much more powerful system, and it allows your business to grow as it can really just grow with it. Some things to know about Sage Intaact. It will cost more than QuickBooks Online if you're comparing them. You cannot really compare them apples to apples because the capabilities of each system is much different. It is not an out-of-the-box system, and it will require an investment, implementation, and time. It's a user-friendly software, but the extensive capabilities do come with more of a learning curve than QuickBooks Online. Again, this should be expected as there's much more you can do with Sage Intaact. But related to that, the customization capabilities are a strength of the system, but you can also have it as a challenge if you would require extensive customization. I've been working in the system for, I think, over 7 years now, and there are still features and capabilities that I don't have experience with, but that just shows you how much it can truly grow with your organization. I really am a big fan of it, and like I said, you can't compare it apples to apples with QuickBooks Online. So some more similar notes there comparing the two together. So why would you migrate from QuickBooks to Sage Intaact? Sage Intaact offers comprehensive and customizable reporting features that I touched on that really just increases your efficiency and the information that you can produce. It does this through its standard and custom dimensions, and the dimensions and reporting capabilities of Sage Intaact are the biggest selling point compared to QuickBooks Online. The reporting allows for real-time data, reports, metrics, and other features to be visible on a dashboard. And you get to completely customize that dashboard for whatever is useful to whoever is going to be viewing that dashboard and using that dashboard. We often see dashboards as the most used area with our client leadership teams and also the client users. So it's just kind of like a home landing page that makes using the system even easier. Sage Intaact has those customized user and role-based permissions, giving you those great internal controls and audit trails. As that business grows, it can also grow with you, providing the reporting needed efficiently and effectively. The data entry process can become automated to increase efficiency. I know QuickBooks Online has bank feeds, which that's great, but just the things you can do with Sage Intaact to have it be doing things in the background, have the systems connect together and all work together it's a really big selling point. On the nonprofit side, it allows you to track, manage, and report on your grants, your events, your program areas, restricted and board designated assets. That often requires some complication in QuickBooks Online if you're doing it, as you have to have a lot of hierarchy to give you those reports. It's much more straightforward with the dimensions in Sage Intaact. And along with that, another one it could be really utilized by any organization that wants to allocate, but we know nonprofits need to do it the most. So that transaction allocation feature where it does the hard work for you once you set it up. And it can split out those expenses to your different areas is also a huge difference from QuickBooks Online. It also can assist with accurate, timely, and automated revenue recognition, just kind of allowing you to track those by the grants more clearly. And you can, they released it, I believe, a year ago, where it can also record the revenue for you and release that revenue for you. All these features allow for a more timely closing and accurate data. To give you a little bit of a visual of Sage Intaact, we have a nonprofit demo company dashboard up here that we created. So these can be completely custom built out to include any performance metrics, reports, graphs, internal and external links, and filters that you'd like. At the top in this example, you can see the filters up here, allowing you to filter down what data you're looking for. You can turn those filters on and off based on whatever you want the dashboard to show. The top of the dashboard has 2 rows of performance cards here that you can see. So you can group those. The top one is giving you, financial metric data. And the second ones are giving you essentially more statistical account data and ratios. And these are all updated for you automatically. There's no manual work. You set them up on the front end, and then based on the data entered, it will give you the most up-to-date information based on however you choose these filters up here. The first report that you can see here is an example statement of activities by program, and it's comparing it with a budget and color highlighting of any larger numbers. This is a very kind of like basic report that can be built, and it just shows you how much capabilities are of the system. So you can really completely build your own report out in any way you'd like, from the rows and all the columns and whatever data you want in there. So a note on all the report capabilities, anything that you see in blue in here, there's some blue numbers, some black numbers, anything in blue is linked to the data, and you can click in them and you'll see the GL detail of exactly what makes up those numbers. You can also see some links up here, so it's easy to print, export to PDF or Excel these reports from your dashboard. I could not fit all the dashboard on one screenshot, so I scroll down, you can see most of the lower half here. You'll see additional financial reports along with financial charts. These are basic examples of how diverse the system is. Now you can present and analyze data. So you can filter down any certain revenue areas you want to focus on. You want to present it in a chart or graph format. You can also do that for a lot of data. So just an example here, put in your metrics, comparing whatever you tell the system to look at. Similar to how I showed the QuickBooks Online report, I wanted to show how, this is a standard financial report that can be built in Sage Intaact. And just the formatting wise, it's much more GAAP compliant, provides the data that you need, and you can simply export that without any manual work. Where with QuickBooks Online, it does require manual work to get it in this format. So this is a huge feature of Sage Intaact, just being able to easily build these reports out and present it in a quick manner. You can even have these reports to be scheduled to automatically deliver from the system. And the last note, very specific again to nonprofits, I just want to comment that you can, if you work with a lot of federal grants and you need to prepare a CFA, you can create a CFA report directly in Intaact so that it's automated for you and you can kind of just monitor it and see where things are at throughout the year. All right, shifting gears here to our accounts payable system. So Bill.com is now known as Bill, so you'll probably hear me say it both ways. I often mix them up. It is important to have systems and processes automated and connected. We often utilize Bill.com for accounts payable as a two-way integration with QuickBooks Online and Sage Intaact. It is a cloud-based platform for automating accounts payable. Note, Bill.com also has platforms for accounts receivable and expense management, but we typically only use it for accounts payable in our team. The accounts receivable is a bit limited in areas, and the invoices will not match your company invoice from the accounting system. And when I say that, I mean the formatting. So obviously the coding of it will match, but the formatting of what your customer will receive, it won't match whatever you've set up in your accounting system. However, we do use it for a few clients as needed, as it does allow customers to remit payments electronically. So out of the box, Sage Intaact does not allow you to do that. You would partner with a third-party platform if you needed to do so, but we use that if it's kind of one-off scenarios. We'll leverage the AR part of bill.com to send out that invoice, and it gives them a link to pay the bill electronically. The expense management module of bill.com is newer, and it was lacking in a few sync capabilities when we first vetted it. That's probably 2 years ago now. Then that was kind of the last time we met with them. So on the expense management side, I don't have any firsthand experience with this module at this time. So if you have questions on that side, I will not be able to answer those. It also very newly has a insights and forecasting module. I think that was released in the last 2 months, maybe. I could be wrong there, but I've just noticed it. And that also helps you manage your payables and expenses more closely. So those are just examples that they continue to develop it and build it out, which is exciting. To touch on the features and functionalities that we find most valuable in Bill.com. It has a mobile app that you can use for approval and scheduling payments. So things are often on the go in today's world and done kind of wherever you're at. So that is a huge plus that you can do that even if you're traveling. You can make payments out of Bill.com via a physical check. So that's kind of the first default. Electronic payments. So if you have the vendor's banking information, you can enter that for them and they'll receive it electronically. If you invite that vendor, so if you have their email address, you can send them an invite. They will set up an account. They can enter their bank information and you never get access to it. So it does protect that. Once they do that, they do receive it by e-payment, which naturally gets there faster. You're not worried about uncashed checks, anything like that. And it is cheaper. And then finally, they offer payments via virtual card. So this only applies if the vendor opts into virtual cards and it doesn't change anything on the payment outside. You won't notice any changes. It just changes how they choose to receive their payment. There is a great approval process that you can build and configure to meet your needs. So that's a huge plus, especially when we're looking at it from an accounting standpoint and you want to have your internal controls and protection over, who can, when bills are paid, make sure they're approved and who has access to those bank accounts. So that relates to their strong internal controls. They do have restricted bank access for issuing payments. Whoever sets up that bank account, they have to nominate another user to give them access to use it. So that's great. We have a lot of team members in each Bill.com account, but only one, maybe two as a backup would have access to physically pay bills and have the money go out. It has an OCR built in to assist in entering the bills and setting up new vendors. So that seems to continue to get developed. I'll show an example of that in a minute here. There's a virtual AP inbox that bills can be uploaded or emailed to. So you get to create that email address. And this allows you to have, you don't have to have users all in the system. They can email in bills that they are approving for payment from the organization. And that's what we often set it up as. It's up to you if you want to choose to give that email out to your vendors and have them emailing bills in directly, but oftentimes you want to keep it from getting junk email in there. So just wanted to add that note. As I mentioned before, you can issue accounts receivable invoices and receive electronic and credit card payments. So that is a very big functionality. It is just a little bit limited in how you can format those invoices. I believe they just upgraded the system a lot, so hopefully they'll continue to do so and it may be able to kind of match the invoice formatting. And it does sync directly, bidirectionally with QuickBooks Online and Sage Intaact and all the standard dimensions of those. So that is a huge plus, makes it easier as they just talk to each other. You enter it in one system and they sync back and forth. Shifting into the things to consider with Bill.com. What I noted earlier with Sage Intaact regarding the transaction allocation feature, where you just code one bill to one line and it allocates it in the background to all your different dimensions. Bill.com cannot sync with that allocation dimension. So if you would need to use allocations live on bills, your workarounds would have to be that you just code it incorrectly with one line, sync it into Intaact, and then manually change the bill once it's in Intaact. Or you would have to manually break it out. You can import bills into Bill.com or Bill. And that would be another workaround. Again, you're doing it more manually. You're essentially doing the allocation twice. So that is something to consider if you have allocation needs. Bill.com does not have a purchasing process. So if you have a formal purchasing process, like with our clients that do, that all runs through Sage Intaact. And then once it reaches the bill state, it will sync into Bill.com for payment and it will reference the purchase order number. But the whole process will not happen within Bill.com. If you have multiple entities, you'll need a Bill.com account for each entity. They cannot operate out of the same one to maintain those inter-entity transactions. You cannot customize, rename, or reorder the dimension fields to match your accounting system. I'll show you a visual, what I'm referring to there in a second. The display settings are all fixed. And then lastly, one thing to note is if you do enter a vendor's email address, Bill.com will email them asking them to set up an account. This happens even if you've entered their banking information directly on your end and there's no way to turn it off. So it is something to consider when selecting a payment provider. It's important to know how they're outreaching your vendors and how they manage vendor relationships, just because we don't want to bother our vendors if we already have all the information that we need. Shifting over to a screenshot of Bill.com. This is the main overview page. So at the top, you can see it's very visually appealing, easy to work with. The overview gives you nice metrics of what's going on. Even it has links to approved bills waiting your approval and issue payments to your, once they have your authorization. So this is a demo, there's not as much going on here, but any approvals will be listed by the approver here, how long it's been outstanding and how many bills are awaiting approval. We go in here and there will be even a shortcut link and you click that and it'll just take you to the page showing you all the bills waiting on your approval. Gives you an overview of bills to pay, any open invoices, and then if you're using it for receivables, all of these metrics would be pertaining to it as well. Notice there is a customize overview button up here, so it does allow you to play with it, but there is limited customization. From there, I'm going to shift up, and we can see tasks. So there's this small orange notification. That's a great feature because it lets you know of any sync errors with your accounting system so that you can fix those. And it also will track physical checks if you're paying those out that are approaching their expiration date so that you can contact the vendor, see if it needs to be voided and reissued, or if they will just simply cash it before the expiration date. To the left of that, you'll see network. And at the top, that's where you'll see any other companies that are already in Bill.com. So if you set up a vendor and they are already using it or have a system for another client that they're working with, you can connect with them and it automatically sets up their e-payment. You don't need their bank information. They don't need to enter it. They just need to accept the invitation. On the left, you can see a vendors option. Each contains a list of all of your vendors. So you just click this drop down, take you to your list of vendors, and then you could click into a vendor that you're interested in. And there it'll show you all the bills, any vendor credits, their W-9, documents, notes, prior payments, all right there. So it does track that, very easily organized to find information if a question comes up. Trying to think if there's anything else on this Bill.com overview to touch on, but similar, if you do use it for receivables, you'd have your customers and invoices down here that you could look into. They did just consolidate all of their systems into one. So notice up here, I could click and spend an expense if you were to use it for credit cards. Again, circling back to what we started this webinar on, just make sure that that spend and expense would meet all of your reporting needs, dimensional needs, accounting needs. Just make sure that it has those. And then insights and forecasting, you'll see this was just released, and it's just some nice built-in reporting for the payable side of operations and giving you some insight there. That'll be most useful if you do truly process all of your payments out from bill.com. If you pay checks manually as needed, it will miss those. But I guess on that topic, something I'll add, we do try to run all payments through bill.com. That way, if you go through an audit, anything like that, you can give the auditor view-only access. So even if you made a check outside of the bill pay system, we'll upload the bill, have it go through approval, and then you can manually record that check so that it doesn't go out again. But it records the transaction for you. You have the physical document in here all in the same place. So that is a huge plus. Looking more on the bill entry side, this is a screenshot of what it looks like when you're entering a bill. So you'll notice some green text here, and even this link, I didn't add that. That was there when I took the screen snip. And that just means that it's been automatically scanned and it's entered the data for you. It can be hit or miss on what data it can read or enter. It depends on the formatting in the invoice. Notice that, the bill description was not entered. I had to bring that in. But for the most part, it's pretty decent and it continues to improve. And you're essentially just kind of reviewing that it brought the correct data into the correct field rather than needing to manually enter that. So that's exciting. If you pay a vendor more than once, the coding from the prior bill will automatically populate on the next bill in the future. So just keep that in mind. If you pay a vendor for multiple purposes or multiple different accounts, to either have a separate vendor set up for that account or just make sure that you're updating the description here. And then here you can see the coding of the bill, assigned approvers, and also any notes that allow you to communicate back and forth as needed. So the coding on this example is just one line. And what I was saying before with that, it has limited customization. If you're syncing this with Sage Intaact, which it's set up to do in this demo example, department in Sage Intaact, we may rename that to either program or functional expense. You can't rename it here. It's going to remain department. Similarly, the way we often set it up, we'd prefer to have job be the first thing that you code, as that controls what department and location it's assigned to. You cannot move those around. So it's not the end of the world by any means. It's completely just kind of like ease of use thing. So when I say there's limited customization, that's just what I'm referring to, that we cannot change those in bill.com. You can add as many rows as you need to. And then notice down here, you assign your approvers. So they do have great approval processes. Essentially, you can set it up where if that bill is over, $0, it'll auto assign whoever you want in there. And they also have approval groups. So if you have multiple approvers, rather than needing to, manually pick someone, but it's kind of whoever's available can approve it, you set up those groups and it does it for you. We like to do that just in case, a client ever has an employee leave. We don't have to go in and reconfigure the approval configuration. We just simply swap out and add in the new employee to that grouping. So that's a nice ease of use plus. Lastly, that there is notes on the bill, and we utilize these. So anyone that has a user to that bill.com account, you can do the @ symbol, type in their name and click on it. And then you can send them whatever note, question, guidance that you need to, and they will receive an email letting them know that you sent them a note, and then it'll take them directly into this bill. So you can just kind of discuss right on it and make it easy to come to a conclusion and move forward. So bill.com is our main AP system at this time, and these are some of the great features of it. I'm going to shift now away from accounts payable and look more at expense management and credit cards. So looking into that, we'll start out with Expensify. Expensify is used to track and manage expenses. It is a web-based platform, and it does have a nice mobile app, and it comes with QuickBooks Online and Sage Intaact full sync capabilities. So looking at those features that we really like in Expensify. Again, the user-friendly app and web interface. We often have clients like how it operates. You can directly link your credit cards into Expensify, and you do not have to have an Expensify card. They do have an Expensify card, but they do not require you to use it in order to use their system. It has a receipt scanning to assist with data entry, similar to how Bill.com, scans that bill. It will have an OCR system scanning your receipt to pre-enter data for you. You can also set up specific expense policies and rules and how it operates and what can be done by employees. Shifting over to things to consider with Expensify and how it operates for credit cards and expense reimbursements. It can be a bit complicated to assist team members. It's really because there are some system limitations that control what you can do and what you cannot do to assist employees. So even at an administrator level, it does limit a little bit if you're trying to go in and help an employee with a receipt and expense. I mentioned before on the feature side that it allows you to link other credit cards directly into Expensify, but I want to note that certain credit cards do not feed directly into Expensify. So all your major ones will, but if you're using more of a local one provided by a bank or something like that, most likely it may not. It is possible. They continue to develop, all these systems continue to develop their connection capabilities. So not to rule it out, but it is something 100%. If you're looking at systems like we talked about early on in that process, you'd want to confirm if you want to keep your current credit card that it would link directly into Expensify or whatever card management system you are looking at. Similar to what I mentioned a moment ago about Bill.com and its limited customization, you cannot change the dimensions, formatting, anything like that. So Expensify will have its own naming of those dimensions, but it does sync all the dimensions. Can just be a little bit misleading if you know what they're called in your accounting system. And then finally, to support multiple entities, you would need an Expensify workspace for each one. So it's kind of in the same system, but they do operate separately as far as the setup in different rules. Getting a visual of Expensify, you can see here that this is the desktop platform. So it's got a great UI. It's very visually appealing, not too much going on. It shows the detail of each expense that you've entered or that is awaiting your completion. So notice here it says unreported, so you haven't done anything with it. Open, so you've started your expense report, but you have not submitted it. And it gives you all the metrics of how it's coded, your receipts. And this tells you right here that it's from a credit card, or this is a reimbursement for mileage. So it is very, user-friendly, easy to determine what's going on. On the left sidebar, you also see something called the inbox right up here. So this kind of directs, it's not truly an email inbox or anything like that, but it'll be the inbox for any of your notifications. So if you have something to approve, it'll feed it there. If you have something to reimburse, it'll feed it there so you can go in and reimburse that employee's expense. Or if you have credit card charges that you have not coded yet, it'll let you know that those need to be addressed. So it is nice that it feeds everything to you, lets you know what needs to be completed. It also gives you the ability to search by individual expenses, or notice below it, it's kind of hard because it's grayed out, reports. So if you want to track or look into something by report, maybe you do monthly expense reports. That's often my personal easiest way to find something, but if you're looking for an individual expense report, just one expense line, then you can go this route. Looking at the mobile app, we can see here that it, similar to their web platform, it is very user-friendly. It's visually appealing. Doesn't look like there's too much going on, but the app is great for simply just capturing those expenses, your receipts, approving expense reports, kind of just doing your most important user end functionality. You can do most of it from your phone. So it also allows you to import your credit card if you want to do that for your expense reimbursement side of things. Shifting away from Expensify and over to Nexonia, so a different platform. but similar user, how do I describe this? Similar use case. Here we go. So Nexonia can actually be used for a little bit more than Expensify. It'll do your expense reimbursements, your credit card expense reporting. So those are the same. You can also use it for invoice management, time tracking, and travel solutions. Our team does only use it for employee reimbursements and credit card expense tracking, same thing we would use Expensify for. So I cannot speak to the invoice management, time tracking, or travel solutions that it does have. You'll see here also it does have a mobile application, and it's not a bad mobile screen, still user-friendly. It's just not quite as great of a user experience as Expensify or Ramp, which I'll go over here in a second. Shifting to the Nexonia features that really stand out, it can be used in multiple entities out of one system. So that is the opposite of Expensify. Opposite of other systems, it also comes completely customizable interface and dimensions. So I'll give you a screenshot in a moment of how the interface looks, but you can customize a lot of what the end user ends up seeing. So you can make those dimension names tied to your accounting system, reorganize them, and make it much more clear. Opposite of the other systems, it can sync with the Sage Intaact transaction allocation dimension. So this is a huge selling point if you are a nonprofit organization that wants to use allocations, or even a for-profit that has very complex reporting needs and would use allocations within Sage Intaact. It's a huge plus for the Nexonia system that it will allow you to use the transaction allocation so that it codes it more complex in the accounting system, but makes it very user-friendly on the user side. Similar to Expensify, you can link credit cards directly into Nexonia. Also similar to Expensify, there are certain cards that would not be able to be linked in. So just something to always vet with a system that you look at for credit card reimbursements. A unique instance with Nexonia is you can make custom reporting, but it is a bit limited, but still a nice feature to have that we use in a couple different clients. Another thing that stands out from, again, more on the administrative side, it does make it easier for us to assist employees whenever an issue arises. So we can kind of go in, see exactly what they're seeing, and help move things forward. Some things to consider with Nexonia. So as I mentioned, the credit card feeds may not sync directly into Nexonia, but a lot of them do. So just something to make sure you look into before deciding on a system. Like I mentioned, looking at that image, it doesn't have the flashiest user interface, but you can customize it a lot, which is a plus. So depends which side you really kind of care about more there. You cannot expand the screen size when entering an expense. I'm going to show that here on the next slide. And their customer support does take a little bit of time to respond when an issue arises, a good 24 to 48 hours. But as long as it's nothing super important that you need to have to keep things moving forward, they do offer good support once you get their attention. So here's the screenshot that I was referring to, and this is from their desktop platform. So if you're on your computer using Nexonia, this screen is the one that I was referring to when I say you cannot make it any bigger or full screen. So in the background, you see the expense report, and that is on a full screen, where if you're working on the individual expense, it creates this smaller pop-up screen that you work in. And if there's a way to do it, I am not aware of it. If you do know how, shoot that message over into the chat, and I would love that as a learning moment to pass along. But that can be a little bit of annoying, just makes everything a little bit smaller, condensed, and not as user-friendly, but not a complete game changer in any way. You can control what's required and organized and how the dimensions are in any order. So this here is red, so that means that's required. And it's actually pre-mapped. Notice it's not even a field that a user can edit, so that's a great feature. And then we organize the rest of these by using numbers and putting them in the naming convention that matches the accounting system. So over here you have your receipt. It does have an OCR reader. You can visually move in and out, so it functions. I just wish you could make it a big screen. That could just be a personal preference thing. And this is a screenshot of their mobile application. The left side shows the viewpoint of approving an expense report, and the right side shows the detail if you were to click into one of the expenses. So it shows you which ones have receipts links, which ones do not, the total of that report, and then you can see it by expense. This one shows it comes from a credit card. This is a reimbursement for mileage. So once you click in it, you can see exactly how it's coded, just to make sure everything's correct, matches the receipt, and it's an approved expense. So another great, powerful system. Biggest takeaway is it does work with your transaction allocation and allows the most customization of the system. Finally, the last system we're going to talk about today is our newest expense management system that we began working with, called Ramp. It is an expense management software that can be used for credit cards, expense reimbursements, and bill payments. Ramp does require you to use their Ramp credit card, so that's the biggest thing to consider. You cannot feed your credit cards from anywhere else like you could do with Expensify and Nexonia when we went over those. So if you'd want to work with Ramp on the credit card side, you would need to be committed to having either another credit card, or I would say best practice would be switching as a whole, because if you just have another credit card, you're not fixing your existing credit cards. So we just started working with them in February, so I do continue to learn more and more each day working with them. They're a growing platform. They've had continuous development on the expense and AP side, which is exciting. When I've only been using it and seen it over the last 2 months, there have been a good amount of updates and features rolled out. So looking at those features that are most notable on Ramp, it can be used with multiple entities out of one system. And it works on AP and credit cards. So that's a plus if you have multiple entities. It offers real-time expense tracking and more expense automation capabilities. So if you have standard expenses from the same vendor, you can set it up where it automatically maps that for you and codes it. You can issue virtual and physical credit cards. So it's common that we see virtual cards issued for kind of your recurring subscription charges, things like that. That way, if you ever have to worry about your credit card getting kind of used elsewhere and you need to cancel it and get a new one, it won't impact all of your recurring charges. Things like that is a good use case for those physical credit card or virtual credit cards. It has advanced spend control configuration settings and approvals, so you can kind of build those out, make sure that it's going through the necessary approval policies. One thing is that Ramp does allow guest users with virtual cards, which is, this is a very useful thing if you hold events and want to issue a virtual card for a travel stipend to an attendee, rather than making them submit an expense reimbursement after the fact. We do have a client that's using it for that, and those guest users you're not charged for. So that is a huge plus if you do hold a lot of events or team events, things like that. They do have timely customer support. And then similar to Nexonia, you can more easily assist employees and team members if an issue arises. So, excuse me, you can go in and kind of see what the user's seeing and try to help them keep moving things forward. Some things to consider with Ramp that we've learned. You have to use a credit card. So as I started out, that's probably the biggest thing. You have to be okay using a Ramp credit card for your needs. It really doesn't make sense to have another credit card unless you have a separate system, but even that goes against a lot of what we talked about today. So if you're going to Ramp, you kind of need to be, maybe you don't have a card yet and you're a newer organization and business, then this would be a great option for you. Otherwise, you just want to plan accordingly, switching off your current credit card. At this time, it does not sync with transaction allocations of Sage Intaact, which was kind of my biggest selling point to Nexonia. So I wanted to notate that. At this time, it does not. I'd pass that feedback along to their product team, and hopefully they are able to build that out. But at this time, it cannot do that. And it's something else to consider based on your organizational needs. And it does have limited user permissions customization. Also pass this along. I like it if we can kind of completely customize exactly what users can do and see where they are more role-based and you cannot tweak them at all at this point. So they do have a decent amount of different roles, but hopefully that is developed in the future. Shifting to a visual of the system. You can see here a screenshot of the interface from the accountant's perspective. So you can review all the transactions before they go into your accounting system. You get to control when it goes. It'll highlight any issues. Notice here, missing memo, missing receipt. And those need to be addressed by the employee. So you can send them a follow-up message directly out of the system, and it will do it automatically as well. It has a great interface, but there is limited customization similar to Expensify. As far as user friendliness, how it looks, it is very user friendly. You just can't rename the fields. So, all right. This mobile app screenshot. So again, very visually appealing, great with space. There's not too much going on, and it allows you to track all of your physical and virtual cards, along with the activity for those that you have remaining. You can take a picture with a receipt and attach it to the expense. And I have heard good things from our clients on how it operates. And then the final thing that I didn't talk too much about is I kind of really focus on the credit card and expense management side of Ramp. Excuse me, it does also have an AP bill pay system. So I have not used this firsthand yet, but we are looking at it to condense AP and expense management into the same system. You can see the interface looks the same as their credit card system, and it does have the same automation features, very visually appealing. And you can pay bills via physical check, electronic payment, and virtual cards, which is the same as bill.com, which is our main AP system at this time. So that would be nice because you could have all of your AP, expense management, credit cards, reimbursements all out of one system. And they'll continue to develop it, I'm sure, same way they develop their credit card system. So to summarize what we went over today, it is important to work towards seamless integration of your accounting system and related systems. Start out by reviewing and evaluating your existing system and processes. It is important to continue to do this even if you move systems or your current system is meeting your needs at that time. If you decide to change things up, research and vet those potential systems. Do not make a rush decision or migration. Great things take time. There may be an increase in technology costs, but it should result in a larger benefit of time available, timely and accurate data, and less stress. Again, if you move systems or your current system is meeting your needs at that time, it's important to continue to review it and monitor your needs, prospectively, just kind of checking in every quarter, every 6 months, once a year, to make sure that it is continuing to meet everything that you need it to. And that is all that I had today. If you have any questions, like Kristen said, put them in the chat, and the remaining time we can go through those, or I'll let Kristen jump back in here.
Yeah, thank you, Bryce. We did get quite a few questions that came in. I know we're closing in on the end of our hour, but we'll just try and go through a few of these questions and see what we can get answered here. So the first one I have for you is, could you give a sense of how much Sage Intaact costs?
I cannot. It's a customized system. It's definitely something you can reach out about. We are an SIP partner of Sage Intaact, so if we're doing your accounting, there's different pricing. There's discount pricing for that. But if you are using it on the full market, those you'll need to reach out to Intaact about, or we do have the pricing for our best bet, but I can't give actual data. It's very customized to your needs, which is a plus. It's not just a default pricing.
Okay, the next question is, how many expenses or checks per month does a company pay before bill is worthwhile?
That's a great question. I mean, it's kind of up to what your needs are. If you're cutting, maybe 5 physical checks out, but again, it depends on how you're cutting those physical checks out. Do you have a team and process in place where it's easy and you're all in one spot? Then maybe it's not worth it. But if you're working remotely in different places, but you still want to have the necessary internal controls and approvals, we have clients that they maybe cut 10 checks a month and they use bill.com because the cost is not that great, and you just think about the flexibility that it offers you. So it kind of varies based on what your priorities are.
Another pricing question for you. How does the cost compare from QuickBooks to Sage?
So we kind of talked about the pricing a little bit. QuickBooks Online has gone up as has a lot of things in the last couple of years. But our SIP pricing that we get for clients that we're partnered with to do the accounting, there's not a large increase. If you're using it on the open market, it will be more money. But again, it depends on where you plan to go with your organization or business. If you know it's going to grow and you'd really like the reporting capabilities, the internal controls, just the more power that it has to grow with you, it would be worth the additional cost in the end. It's not a gigantic increase, but it's an increase because it's, like I mentioned during the presentation, it's not apples to apples and what they can do and what their capabilities are. So Bill.com, QuickBooks Online is meeting your needs. It's giving you all your reporting that you want, and you don't think it'll impact your growth. You're totally good to stay where you're at.
The next question for you, does Bill file 1099s at year end?
That is a great question. Internally, we do the 1099s for all of our clients. So I have not looked into that. They may have kind of like a partner system that you can use with it, but I don't think they do it directly. So at this point, my safest bet would say no, but it is potentially possible if we look into that.
Next question, can vendors be imported from QuickBooks Online?
Yes. So when you connect Bill.com to your accounting system, it will bring in all of the vendors and their data from your accounting system. And you can do that either way if you're kind of implementing both at the same time. But if you put them in one, they will sync back and forth into the other one initially. When you do that, just make sure you have your vendors cleaned up. That's my just one quick tip. Otherwise, if you have way too many duplicate vendors, your actual system you're going to use to pay the vendors, it might get a little bit more complicated.
Next question is on Bill.com. With the information that goes from the invoice into Bill, is there quite a bit of overlap, repetition of information between what is on the invoice in Bill and then in QuickBooks or Sage Intaact as well? Does that take more time than entering in QuickBooks and writing a check?
So you enter it in Bill and it'll sync that into QuickBooks Online and Sage Intaact and enter the data for you. You don't touch your accounting system. It creates the bill, enters the data exactly as it matches whatever you entered in Bill.com, and then it pays it, and it pays it for you in your accounting system. So time saving wise, it's night and day difference from cutting a check. And it gives you your AP platform with all the tracking of it, and it gives you all that same data in Sage Intaact or QuickBooks Online. And there are links from your accounting system to that bill within the Bill.com system. So even though it's two different, they are connected and they seamlessly do the work for you. You just do it in one spot.
The next question is for Sage Intaact. Does Sage have a time entry app that syncs with payroll and project cost reporting?
They do have some time entry. Yes, they do. I have not used it. They're more developed app yet firsthand, but I know they do have one for tracking your time and expense reporting, all of that. We typically do run that through our payroll system, whichever payroll system we're using. That syncs with Sage Intaact. So whichever way you'd want to go with it.
My next question is, Ramp says they are free. What is the catch?
No, that it is true, but it's entirely based on what you want to do with it and what you want to sync to. So don't quote me on this, but I do believe it's free if you are integrating with QuickBooks Online, depending on what you need to use it for. But they do offer a free service as long as you are using QuickBooks Online and like staying under maybe a certain range. With Sage Intaact, if you wanted to talk to Sage Intaact, it is not free. You pay, I believe it's per user. But again, the time that you save putting it on the employees to do certain things and the time that you save, that it just auto records that in your accounting system for you. You want them to integrate together. It's worth the cost to have the system do that for you rather than having to manually go in there and do so.
Okay, I'll have just one more question for you, Bryce, and then for the sake of time, we'll follow up. I've got quite a few more in here, but we'll follow up with those questions after today to see if we can get those answered for you. But I'll give you one final question. General questions for all systems. With scanned or photocopied receipts now being accepted through apps and originals no longer required for reimbursement, what prevents duplicate reimbursement?
So that ultimately comes down to, the reviewer to ensure that it's not a duplicate. We could set up the systems that they don't allow receipt or expense to be submitted like 30 days after whatever the expense was incurred. So if you put those all in the same monthly expense report, it's kind of on the reviewer to notate that, hey, you submitted this twice and you see the same receipt in there twice. I will say that I know for sure RAMP, if you upload a receipt and the OCR reads that it's a duplicate, it'll notate that to you. And I believe Bill.com will as well, because as soon as you enter it and it recognizes the same bill number, it'll tell you that those already exist in the system. So there are some safeguards in place, and you can build these systems out to apply whatever your expense report rules are. If they have to be submitted within a certain time frame after they're incurred, that should help prevent it being submitted again. Excuse me.
Great, thank you. And those questions that we didn't get to, we'll have Bryce follow up with you after the webinar today. Thank you so much, Bryce, for sharing all of your expertise. This was certainly a really educational webinar that had tons of great information on all the different platforms. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We hope you found this really helpful. Bryce did share his contact information as well in the PowerPoint that will be included in the follow-up email along with the webinar recording for your reference after today's event. We have some other great trainings coming up soon. So if you're subscribed to our email list, you'll get notifications of those in your inbox. If you're not subscribed to our email list, head on over to our website at wagnercpas.com and sign up. You can also check out the list of upcoming events under the upcoming events section. We look forward to having you all join us again soon. Thanks and have a great day.